Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to part 2 of the F3 ones to watch on the feeder series. So these are now kind of guys that I would happily admit the expanse of my knowledge does not go into, but David and Mark have some really great knowledge on these guys, and so we'd love to kind of share these names with you for you to watch out for, and if you know of them, to give your opinion on in the comments below. So this episode will very much be dominated by Mark and David, and you might hear a few kind of sporadic inputs from me as well. But yes guys, please enjoy the episode.
Yep, so I guess I'll start off with let's go with Formula 4 ADAC first. I would say of our ones to watch from looking at the previous year. And the first driver that springs to mind is of course Dennis Hauger.
Yeah. Obviously he was the guy finished second, only 7 points behind.
Considering how many non-point scoring rounds he had and how many bad races he had, it was amazing. That
yes,
he finished 7 points behind. He was inconsistent but fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't he win the Italian one?
I believe he did.
Yeah,
I believe he did. I have memories of
an Armstrong all over again, isn't it?
Yes, he did. He did indeed win the Italian.
If one won one, the other won the other one.
Yep.
Well, the other one didn't compete in Italian.
Shh. You're ruining it, Mark.
Yes, we'll let Dennis have this.
We'll let Dennis have this one.
Yeah. But, as you said, very, very quick. Consistency might be a thing. But, raw pace always looks good.
It does. And the final drive I really want to bring up from ADAC is Roman Stanek.
Yeah, he was Rookie of the Year, wasn't he?
He was, by quite a margin. Most people talk about Paul Aron, but from what I've looked at, Roman Stanek does better than Paul Aron. He seems more consistent and he also seems faster.
Do you think Paul might be suffering from the sort of similar thing to what Ralph does, as in very, very good, but is he quite at the level?
Not yet. I think he could get to the level.
He's backed by Mercedes now, isn't he?
He is, and you don't get backed by Mercedes unless they see something in you.
Yeah, or you have a brother who's very good at management.
Yes. But I would say that, if we're saying anything, I reckon Roman Stanek will stay on for next year, and it was going to be a tight battle between him and Leclerc for the title.
So what do we think?
The other Leclerc. The less good one, the one that didn't inherit his brother's talent.
In fairness to Arthur, from what I can work out, he ended up sitting on the sidelines for a lot of years while they were basically getting Charles through his career and sorting that out. So he's a lot less experienced than Charles had.
He did impress. He had massive, he either impressed or was average. That's one thing I will say about him. He was consistent, but he wasn't wildly fast.
It's that thing of, would we be looking at him necessarily, or would he be coming up if it wasn't for the surname? The third is still respectable, but
he was very much off the title battle, and that's the thing. If the rookie of F4 ADAC is only 50 points ahead of you, and you're 50 points away from the main title contenders, you're in no man's land.
It could be worse, because I'm a Ferrari fan and I know a vague idea what might be coming. people not performing quite as planned.
Okay, I think we'll move on to, do you want to do Formula Renault?
We could do Formula Renault.
Because, two drivers that I think, three actually, that deserve a big mention. And I'm sure you'll agree on both, all three.
Quite probably.
Shall we start on the bottom and go to the top?
Yep, you name them, we'll work with you.
Okay, Cal Collette.
Yeah, always in or around the podium. I mean, bearing in mind he was a rookie going into it, and the others ahead of him had experience. Although he didn't win any, he was always, certainly at the end of the season, he was racing them hard for it.
He was always there. That's one thing you can say about him. He was always there. And he didn't just win Rookie of the Year by a small margin. He absolutely belted.
Yeah, he owned it. That said, he's Renault backed. I think he won French F4 at some point, and he does seem to be sort of one of their golden boys. Am I right in thinking sponsored by, managed by the same guy, Nicholas Todd?
I think he is. So he's very much Brazil's next star. Cause
very much. Yeah.
I would say that people are going to shout out Sergio Sette Camera, but I don't see him getting into F1.
I like Sergio, but it's just that last tenth or whatever that seems to be quite missing. Maybe.
I can see
he's a brilliant driver, but brilliant sometimes isn't quite enough to get you across the line.
Mate, once again, he's a driver that I see ending up in Formula E.
So there is talk about him doing Indy, I know that.
I mean, let's be honest, if Ferrucci can go on to do what he did in IndyCar, I reckon Sergio Sette Camera's going to set them alight.
The thing, it depends a little bit on where you end up, but yeah, because you can get a lot of very good drivers who end up driving for teams that don't have any budget, which on their day can perform and can get points and what have you, but Ferrucci's a mystery to me. The thing is, if you knew nothing about his history, it'd be like he's a young driver who's gone in and actually done quite well. But
if you knew about his history, you'd be like, how the hell is this guy doing well? And why the hell was anyone giving him a seat?
That would be the one.
Okay, so we're very positive about Cal Collette.
Yep.
Victor Martins, I mean, I have positive opinions about him. I don't rate him as highly as Porsche, but he's certainly good.
Again, Renault backs. But he was sort of like almost their shoe-in for the title, I think. Had a year's experience, and he's looked very strong this season. I think the difference in the points for the title was really marginal. And some of that just comes down to reliability, and I think he's had a little bit more bad luck, perhaps. But
they both missed one race.
Ooh.
But actually, looking at the finishes, I would argue Piastri had worse luck.
Oh.
Piastri, Martin should have no excuse. He actually every round he started, he finished in the points, while Piastri had a race where he didn't finish in the points.
Mm-hmm. Very consistent, anyway.
Yeah. And that brings us on to my next driver, the one who I believe should be in F3, and I'm surprised he's not announced already, and that is Oscar Piastri.
I'm wondering with Oscar whether the reason he hasn't been announced is due to budget. I have heard him with Kramer, but obviously nothing has been said one way or another on that.
No, I've heard the Prema rumour as well, and I mean, what they say, where there's smoke, there's a fire.
Mm.
And Renault, one thing I do give Formula Renault is they do pay out their champions enough to advance on to F3.
It always helps.
Yeah, so it's a matter of, I think, maybe Castri's been teasing that he's got something to announce.
Yeah.
think he is going to end up in F3, but the matter is where. I think Prema or another big team, but I mean, he could get shafted and be stuck at Garland for.
The problem is you want to hope he ends up at Prema or another big team, because the problem is there's 30 seats on the grid, and that's great, but how much after the first 15 are you seeing?
Yeah. And
So,
one thing, as much as not a big fan of Peroni, I mean, Peroni must have some talent if he can score points in that Campos.
yeah.
That's one thing I will give Peroni.
But after that accident as well, it's like fair credit to him coming back, because that was massive.
Yeah. I believe, that moves us on to the main Euro Formula Series, Euro Formula Open.
I'm not so hot on this one, I'll be honest with you, but happy to listen.
Mariano Sato, of course, is an F2 state.
Yep.
Failed to do as well. I mean, he was arguably in a better seat than Luundgard when they were both in F2 at the same time, and Luundgard outperformed him.
Yeah, but Luundgard, I think, is genuinely incredibly good.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can ask Mike of my opinions of Luundgard.
Well, we can actually involve... I'll just remind everyone that I am still awake. I'm just obviously listening into a fascinating chat within here. I think Luundgard would probably be a good one to include, because he didn't include him in the F2 ones to watch, because we're unsure.
He's not confirmed.
But he looks likely to get the ART one. So Luundgard, yeah, I agree. Very talented young guy.
I'm a huge fan of Luundgard. Like, massive.
Yeah, I mean...
It's not just because he uses number 3 and isn't Renault backed. It's not just that.
It is, you're biased.
No, he's genuinely an incredible driver.
Yeah, I say, in Formula Renault the other year, him and Max Futrell fighting for the title. You know, Max had a year under his belt, and Luundgard was coming in as a rookie, and he really forced the issue. So, I sort of get the feeling he is kind of the next one Renault is seriously looking at. I think they've got caught out a little bit by how good Guan Yu's been, but
I think it's going to be a battle between Zhao and Luundgard for a future Renault seat.
yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, it could go to Zhao for sponsorship reasons and money reasons and marketing reasons. And
It's
this isn't a fair saying to use because of Zhao is generally talented, but I say this mainly for motor racing. Money talks and talent walks.
Money gets you into the best seats. You still need talent to make the most of it. But when you've got two drivers who are a similar level of talent, certainly the money can very much help.
Yeah, I guess we have to mention him, Jack Doohan.
Such enthusiasm that Ones to Watch has been brought into. I mean, everyone at home can't wait to hear about Jack Doohan now.
He's just... If he didn't have his father's money or the last name, he's not that impressive.
He would be average.
He is solidly average.
In the India series, he did get beaten by Jamie Chadwick last year.
Which is not... Chadwick is talented, I will give her that,
But if you're a Red Bull Junior, your target is normally to be winning these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did show some elements of pace in F3 Asia.
Mm.
And he's still showing in F3 Asia, but...
In British F4, he was sort of fighting the rookie title against Dennis Hager. They were pretty much on a they were on pretty much on a level. So whether it's just he's had more trouble making the step up, I don't know.
it's weird. He could impress, he could surprise, but I don't expect great things from him.
I think that was
I don't expect him to be a backmarker. I expect him to be solidly average.
Yeah, I think that was a very good point from David in terms of struggling to make the step up. I think it's often something that is overlooked, that, you know, we'll talk about these guys and we have prospect, they show they're doing the right things in the junior talent, but, you know, you can get up to the next level and then suddenly have the realisation that you just aren't, the guys around you can't doing it. I think famously, I remember, I think it might have been on not Grill the Grid. What's the Beyond the Grid? That's the podcast, isn't it? The Formula 1 one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember the Christian Horner one when he was talking about his time in when he progressed to F3000. And, you know, he stepped up and he went, these guys are unbelievable. You know, and he had success, obviously far more success as a team principal, but, you know, he had success in junior formula, and it can be for a lot of these young guys, you just suddenly get to this realisation that you go, oh, you know what, I'm not that good, or I'm not good enough.
How many team bosses are ex-racers? Let's be honest. There's a lot.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's move into Formula Regional Euro Cup half.
Yeah, because they couldn't use the F3 thing because Euro F3 still existed this time last year. Until it went under.
Jesus Christ. Hopefully the names are sorted out this year.
Yeah, it would be good.
Okay, so Igor Fraga is one that comes to mind.
When the other teams had caught up with Kramer, because they yet again just seemed to get the jump on everyone else, he was very competitive, I thought, you know, fighting for podiums and what have you. He kind of surprised me a little bit because he hadn't been on my radar at all before that. I don't really know too much about him.
He's solidly consistent. Even when the car wasn't competitive, he got it into the points nearly every single time. I don't see him on the same level as Cal Collette.
No, I say if you put him in, it's that thing of he's another one who, if he ends up caught up in the back 15 on the F3 grid, he could disappear and nobody would ever hear from him again. But
so should we talk about the other Brazilian, the one that has a name and has a academy membership?
Oh, Mr. Fittipaldi.
Yeah,
I like him though as a person. I'll be quite honest with you. I think he's very
nice. He's very humble, very nice, very smiley.
Yeah.
It's hard not to like him.
Yeah.
But looking at his results, you think, yeah, you didn't inherit your grandfather's talent.
He's decent and he's competitive, but I'm not convinced he's going to be an F1 driver.
He could be a simulator driver or a test driver.
Yeah, a la Pietro, his brother, yeah.
I think that brings us on to the other famous name, because he's looking like he's going to get an F3 seat. David Schumacher.
Well, he won in Euro F3 in a race, didn't he? I can work out.
Hang on.
He was solid,
Oh. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, do I have permission to use one swear here?
No.
Okay, fine, I'll use a light curse, / hardly anyone calls it a curse. He's a crapper version of his father compared to Mick.
That's probably a fair shout, I would say.
So
he's not as good as Ralph, and if you put him next to Mick, he is a lot more disappointing.
racing and stuff to say for definite. I'd say some of it last year when he was in Euro with Formula whatever. Again, there was a little bit of disparity in terms of the grid and cars and teams and stuff.
He was wildly inconsistent. He went from back of the grid, front of the grid, back of the grid, front of the grid, back of the grid, front of the grid.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't put that inconsistency down to just the car. You have to put a bit to the driver.
Well, the thing is, front of the grid shows that there's some talent there. It's just getting more of that than the other bit. As I say, most racing drivers are capable of great performances. It's delivering it week in, week out, which is the problem.
I'm saving one driver for last, which I'm sure you're going to love to talk about.
Well, we'll find out.
Make sure we bring up the Kiwi, the good one, the other good one.
Go on then.
Liam Lawson. Thoughts?
Thoughts are, I'm intrigued. I'm surprised he hasn't been confirmed already somewhere. But interestingly, High Tech haven't announced any drivers yet.
No, and I think there's going to be a few surprises in there. I would not be surprised that if Piastri doesn't end up in Prema, that he will end up in High Tech.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay, now, this is where I'm actually passing on to you for your knowledge, because I only managed to watch live timing and see the results after British F3.
I would absolutely love to say Ayrton Simmons getting to get a raise up to somewhere, but I suspect he might be budget limited on what he can do. So maybe Euro Formula Open, possibly for him. I know he was looking at the car and thinking that looks nice. Jonathan Hoggard and Kieran Jewis I actually saw wandering around the F3 paddock when I was there on the Friday. So, yeah, and obviously Jonathan Hoggard has just won his award and he's currently over in America doing like the Raw 24, which I think he's just finished, practicing for Daytona 24 hours. So his star is very much sort of being noticed at the minute, so he's got a chance of like breaking that British F3 sort of, is it a little bit off the beaten track thing.
From what we've said about Hogarth already, it sounds like his career is more focused on sports cars than open wheel.
No, it's just because that's the prize you get for being like top point whatever. I can't remember exactly how it works, but there's like a prize you get in like the British GT, British F3 if you're like top of something or other. I can't remember whether it's fastest laps or something like that, where you get to race in a car at Daytona. But obviously, if you're budget limited, which if you're in British F3 you probably are, you have to like check all avenues and make the most of any opportunities. So it makes sense.
Anything to say on the champion, Clement Novalak?
Jury's out on him, because I'm not convinced that a lot of the reason he didn't win the title from Hoggard and Simmons was down to the fact he's with Carlin.
So you reckon it was Carr?
Well, he's more experienced as well, because he had come down, I think it was from Formula Renault, and he had done half a season of British F3 last year, which will have helped.
Fair enough.
So, decent, but I don't know if I'd necessarily say he was better than the others.
Just, I would say 2 more drivers to go. One who I think you're also a fan of, Hadrian David.
French F4 champion. Has raced in ADAC as well, I think, but I can't remember what results he got. Seems to have walked the championship in F4 quite comfortably, from what I can work out, although that was more one I sort of saw over Twitter than because I necessarily saw the races themselves.
I saw highlights. He finished, he's 15 years old, he's already, but at that age to see he's only a couple months older than Teo Porsche, a couple months younger than Teo Porsche.
Yeah, but it was an impressive performance anyway.
It was.
I don't really necessarily know the other people on the grid as to how they compare or what class they are. I mean, we've said before, ADAC and Italian is sort of like the series where the other people and the manufacturer back drivers and whatever seem to gravitate to, whereas sort of
that's where I see him going next year. ADAC
that would make sense. Yeah.
And the final driver, one who I know you're a bit defensive of, and I mean, I'd say fairly so, Jake Hughes.
Well, yeah. Any conversation with Jake Hughes about two lines into it always turns to budget, unfortunately, because it's like he's been stuck in Formula 3 forever. He is about 25 now.
But here's what I say, do his results prove that he should earn an F2 seat?
I think so. He's matched a lot of drivers who have gone on to move up. But, you know, it's having the budget together. I think his reason for being at HWA next season is basically because they trust him, they know he's a good benchmark, they know he can push the car around the other drivers. So if they want to prove they're great, he's a really good level to be measured against. I
mean, I look at his stats and I look at him when he races and I say, he's good, but then I look at his age and I'm like, there's drivers younger than him doing better than him. As I said, how much of that is to some extent due to budget or whatever, I don't know. The game has moved on from him. I think he knows that, but as long as F3 guys want to give him a drive, I think he'll happily take it. And as I say, he's a very good benchmark for other drivers, and if a team's trying to get his head round new regulations or the car or whatever else, he's got bags of experience to help them with that. So I mean, that's if
you've got a free car team, I think he's worth having in it just as a level and what have you to help you out with it. I remember Carlin doing something similar with Alex Sims back in about 2013, where for whatever reason they just couldn't get the GP3 car to work, they weren't getting the results or whatever, so they sort of brought him back because he had the experience and whatever else and could get on top of it, and halfway through the year suddenly they started getting podiums and stuff again. So it's sort of a bit tried and tested method, but I sort of see him as a bit of an Alex Sims.
Relating to Sims, do you see him ending up in a similar seat to Sims?
I can see him going that way. I mean, he seems to have a big relationship with HWA. Obviously, he can't stay in their F3 team forever. And obviously, they have links with Mercedes. So whether they would possibly sports car, possibly simulator, possibly whatever.
His experience, and I mean, you have to say consistency. Surely he'd be a great simulator driver because he is consistent, and that is the one thing you want from a simulator driver. A driver to bang in similar lap times, time after time after time, and notice the small things.
Yeah, or sports cars and whatever, and maybe coming back through as a works sports car driver and getting back into that sort of thing while he's doing some of that sort of simulator role or whatever. That's the thing, is there's a world of options. I mean, Alexander Sims, back in about 2014, his career was, he was doing British GP and had dropped out of single seaters practically altogether, except for when an F3 cut team wanted him to do some testing or something for him, and had disappeared altogether. And yet here he is now in Formula E as one of like the leading drivers in it currently this year.
This is a huge jump, I know, but I think a lot of speculation, but with the new Le Mans hypercar prototype, whatever it's called officially, I can't remember, I haven't checked. They seem to have changed the name about 4 times now.
Yeah, it's as much
as the hypercar, but it's been prototype hypercar, this hypercar, just if Mercedes decide to build a hypercar, Le Mans car, could JQs end up there?
It's possible, but I mean, Mercedes GT project, they do have a lot of their own drivers and stuff, so eventually maybe, but I'd say you'd end up working through what was Blancpain, the now World Series or whatever it's called, GT World Series or World Cup or whatever it's called
now. Just call it GT World Series.
Yeah, that's another one that gets confusing.
So, I think on that note, guys,
Mike, what are your thoughts on JQs? That's one that you can actually comment on.
I'm very much in agreement with you guys in terms of he's proven a consistent performer. I take David's point of budget, and unfortunately it is a thing in motorsport that if you don't have the budget, you're not necessarily going to be in the best machinery to prove it. But also, if you're a standout talent, I think teams do tend to take a punt on you, even if you can't necessarily bring much to the table financially. So, yeah, I agree. It would be interesting with that strong link with HWA where he goes. Potentially, if he does follow Alex Sims' route directly and ends up in Formula E, not with Mercedes themselves, because obviously they have a very strong lineup in Stoffel and Nick de Vries. But who's the one that Massa drives for, that Susie Wolf is the team principal of? It's not Virtuosi. It's Venturi.
What is it? Rocket? Oh, Venturi.
It's Venturi. They are sponsored by Rocket. That is their main sponsor. But yeah, it is a Venturi Racing. So potentially keeping that link. Obviously, they'd be connected there. I think me and David discussed in the F2 and F3 podcast and the F1 Worldwide one. It's lucky there seems a lot more options that are viable for careers now as racing drivers. That obviously it's primarily a road to F1, but if you're like a Jake Hughes and it doesn't quite work out, if you're like a Luca Giotta and it doesn't work out, there are now plenty of other options on the table for you. But I think that is probably a very good place to round off. That has been a fantastic chat. I knew it would be in terms of bringing David, and obviously, that second half of the podcast, I just laid back and enjoyed the show. And I hope you guys listening back at home very much enjoyed the show as well. But yeah, guys, that is a roundup of our ones to watch. We will, I think, our next planned bit of feeder series content will be kind of explaining the feature race and the sprint race and what kind of makes up an F2 and F3 weekend, because obviously that differs to if you mainly just follow F1 or you're unsure of what goes on. We're just going to kind of explain that a bit better. But first of all, thank you very much, David, for coming on and adding your expertise and experience of the junior series to the podcast. Very much appreciated.
No problem. I do love a chat,
And it's been a very good one as well, again. And obviously, Mark, well done. But you are part of the channel now. I don't have to thank you anymore. You are just feeder series Mark. He's part of the furniture now. Exactly. But guys, we hope you've been.
I have that sign up. Don't forget you're here forever.
Exactly. But guys, if you were interested in that, don't forget, leave your comments below on the guys that we have spoke about before, if you know about them. If you want to know a little bit more about them, I know David would probably be looking in the comments, and Mark would be active in the comments as well. So if you pose any questions, and I'll do the best to my knowledge to answer as well, as always.
to kind of help you out in terms of understanding. But I think we've given a very good roundup of potential future talents around F1 and the feeder series. A fantastic chat. But guys, for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.